Hi, I'm Johnny Kay. I'm the director of The Oath, a Batman fan film, and you are watching superhero stuff you should know.
Welcome back to Superhero Stuff You Should Know. As usual, this is Ben, the man who knows too much about Batman, and with me, as usual, is...
Oath Drew. I'm ready. Sorry for the break. We're back.
Yes, it's our debut episode for 2023, and we have a guest with us. We said last year was the year of Michael Keaton's return, and then The Flash got delayed and Batgirl got canceled. So now this is the year of Michael Keaton's return, and to help bring that in is Johnny K from Chaotica Studios, who wrote and directed the Batman '89 prequel film called The Oath, a Batman fan film. Welcome, Johnny.
Thank you, guys. Longtime listeners, love to. I feel like I know you already, so thanks for having me.
So how did you discover us?
I actually found you relatively recently through Carl Newman, Michael
Oh,
Keaton's movement double in Batman '89. Carl and I got to know each other, and I was actually on a long road trip, and I thought, let me just pull up an interview of Carl, and I think I just Googled his name, and you guys were the first to pop
yes.
up. And after that, I found out you'd interviewed Sam Hamm and some other kind of personal heroes of mine. So I've spent some time with you guys on long drives before. You didn't know it, but
This is how we find out.
That's awesome.
So, yes, Johnny is joining us as we discuss The Oath, a Batman fan film, and along those lines, discussing the secret origin of Michael Keaton's Batman. So, we're going to be kind of going into a little bit about Johnny and his Batman fandom, going into a little bit of the timeline of Michael Keaton's backstory, as well as sort of the lead up to The Oath. And then the break is when we'll give you guys an opportunity to go check out The Oath if you haven't already on YouTube before coming back for some spoilerly. Wow, I lost the ability to talk over the break. Discussion on The Oath when we come back. So let's go into it. So let's start with Andrew's question.
Okay, so Batman '89 was a huge part of your Bat fandom. Can you tell us about your experience watching the film for the first time?
yeah. Full disclosure, I was 9 years old in 1989, and I personally felt like Batman was made for me. It was probably like maybe outside of like Hulk Hogan and Randy Savage, breaking up their tag team. I think Batman '89 was probably the single biggest thing that had happened to me in my life that summer. So I was there like opening weekend. I can't remember if I was there opening night, but it was definitely opening weekend. And I'm from a small town in Tennessee. And when I saw the movie in the theater, I remember it being so crowded. It was the first sellout show I'd ever seen in the theater where I had to sit next to a complete stranger. And I was completely weirded out, by this guy who's right beside me, and he's giving commentary all through the movie. And I'm just like, this is so different than, seeing a movie that's not a big blockbuster. But yeah, I was hooked, right away. And obviously I had all the merch, the Batman pajamas and the cereal and the caps and the socks and the, whatever 9-year-old kids had, all the toys. So, I mean, I was all in. That logo, like, if a box of Tic Tacs had that logo on it, like I would buy a case of it. I had to have it. Had to have it.
That was the Batmania at the time. Like everything was Batman.
I don't think we've ever seen that since, not to that level.
Really?
I don't think so. I mean, what? You don't see that with like Avengers. I don't have like Avengers cereal.
Oh, you mean as far as the people getting all the merch?
Just the spectacle of it, just how big that was. It's like I think we get too many of those big movies now. Like '89 was really, really special. That was like a big event, and it happened right in the middle of the summer. I don't know. It just seems like we get more and more of those now, and they don't maybe quite seem as special because
It's
we get
one every month. It feels like at this point.
I remember first movie that I noticed people were like lined up for to go into like they'd already bought their ticket, but they were lined up to go into the actual theater door was Independence Day. That was like the first. And I'm just slightly younger than you, and I just remember thinking like, wow, this is a huge film. So I wonder if Batman in '89 was probably even more than that.
It was big, and the mall that I saw it in, like I remember the shop owners or managers like coming out into the hallway and yelling at people in the mall because the line was blocking the entrances to their stores. So whatever store it was, like the managers were yelling at people. And then I don't know, maybe the next big movie after that was I don't know, maybe Jurassic Park or maybe I don't know, maybe even Batman Returns. But I remember by then, like the shop owners had figured out a system where you no longer block the entrance.
Oh,
Ah.
But Batman, there were some irate like shop managers in the mall because their stores were getting blocked on a Friday night. But nobody was there shopping; they were there for Batman.
right. That's awesome.
Do you happen to remember the guy's commentary next to you? Was it like a positive, like, "Oh my god, they got it right," or was just like, "What the hell is this?" type of thing? Like, what
This
was?
is I'm not even bullshitting you. This is 100% true. The only thing I specifically remember him saying is it's the scene where Knox and Vicky Vale are in the armory, and Knox says, "Who is this guy, Bruce Wayne?" And then it cuts to the other side of the mirror where it shows the surveillance camera looking at him. And I remember the stranger right beside me going, "Oh, a surveillance camera." Yeah, so I don't really recall any comments on like the Batmobile or the Batwing or the Joker, but
Yeah.
he was pretty impressed by the surveillance camera. And when it's 100% true story, I remember him specifically like talking about that. And
Wow.
he had a weird cologne too. I remember he had a real
Wow.
overpowering. Yeah, I'm blind and I'm deaf, basically. Not for real, but like I have poor eyesight and poor hearing. But
I was
because
about to say, how'd you make this movie if you're blind? Yeah. Wow.
but because of those two things, I can smell like I have like Wolverine smelling power, so I can still
Wow.
remember the dude's cologne. It was just so strong and overpowering. We kind of diverged off my Batman fandom onto that guy's cologne.
No, that's cool though. Yeah, I feel like toys and stuff. Like I wonder if kids are as into Avengers toys and stuff now as much as kids were into Batman merch back then. Just seems like it's just not the same. Plus, kids probably grow out of toys much quicker these days because of iPads and video games and stuff.
Yeah, there's a saturation too. When there's like
Yeah.
so many different ones, like you can go now and there's just there's just a ton of Batman action figures you can choose from that are like comic related, video game related, movie related, like all
Right.
sorts of stuff. It's just not as doesn't feel special compared to what must have been around back then.
Right.
We had 3 action figures back then. We had Batman, we had the Joker, and we had Bob the Goon.
That was it for the year.
That was it. And Bob got the hell beat out of him.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah. Oh man.
Amazing. So we're going to do kind of a small deep dive into the sort of origin stories of the Michael Keaton version of Bruce Wayne. This sort of takes the movies into account, as well as some information from the original scripts, the novelization, the Batman '89 comic from Sam Hamm and Joe Quinones, that sort of canonized some of Hamm's original ideas into sort of kind of create a comprehensive timeline for our viewers and listeners leading up to The Oath and then Batman '89. So, first off, Bruce Wayne, as usual, grows up in Wayne Manor with Thomas and Martha Wayne as his parents and Alfred as his butler. At one point, Alfred does attempt to give Bruce a riding lesson in riding horses, but Bruce ends up falling into the mud and spraining his ankle, as Alfred relays to Vicky at one point in '89. Now, something that's not in the movies, but has been kind of canonized into the comic, is the fact that at some point during childhood, Bruce Wayne, like his successors, as other succeeding Bruce Waynes, fell into the Batcave and discovered bats. This idea comes from The Dark Knight Returns, but carries over into Sam Hamm's 1986 draft, where Vicky asks, "How'd you find this place?" And Batman says, "Stumbled across it when I was a boy." So that was kind of in the DNA there before we ended up seeing that in Batman Forever and Batman Begins and opening of Batman versus Superman. And it's sort of canonized in the '89 comic series where Bruce tells Drake that the cave was there all along. He just kind of quote unquote fixed it up a little. So how exactly he did that, we don't know. Some of it is a mystery, which is fine because I think a lot of the appeal to the Keaton version is the mystery element of that, as I'm sure you'll agree, Johnny.
Yeah, it's sometimes what you can't see and what you don't know about is more interesting than what you're staring at.
Actually, I noticed that in your film too. You don't reveal a lot of Batman until the very end, which was really great. I thought you really treat him like Jaws in a sense. You know, you don't show, you don't even see his face till what, like very end of it.
Yeah, and we tried to keep his face, out of it. We wanted to kind of keep him, like you said, the shark in Jaws was an example that I used all through filming. And I told Guillermo, our actor, that right up front, because he is not a professionally trained actor. He's a costumer. And
Okay.
he and I had a talk, and very early on, he was a little concerned about being able to, pull off acting chops. And I said, bro, like, you are the shark in Jaws. You are Michael Myers. You're going to be lurking in the shadows. And, that's just my kind of favorite way to see some of these characters. Even in Star Wars, like Boba Fett, I always thought Boba Fett was much cooler when you're seeing him through the perspective of somebody else. And, I don't need to know all that much about Boba Fett. I don't need to know all that much about Judge Dredd. Like, I like to see these characters through the eyes of other people. And Batman, I mean, there's nothing, me as a fan filmmaker, there's nothing I could say about Bruce Wayne and Batman that's not been said 100,000 times. So I kind of wanted to keep him in the background. And, things that you can't see are sometimes a little more interesting than what's standing in the spotlight right in front of you.
So you like that mystery?
Love it. Yeah,
Yeah.
I tried to embrace it. Absolutely.
Yeah,
And
that's
I think
cool.
it works very well in The Oath.
Thank you, man.
So according to the comic, Bruce was part of a family portrait with Thomas and Martha. However, it was unfinished as Martha wanted it to be finished when the azaleas were in bloom outside of Wayne Manor. Unfortunately, before the azaleas were in bloom, the Waynes had a tragedy, which we all know about because it happens in every universe in the DC universe. They go out to, in some cases, watch an opera, or some cases, watch a movie. In this case, it was at the Monarch Theater to see Footlight Frenzy, which is actually, as we've covered before, a live show that existed in real life from Diz White. We discussed in our deeper dive into the Wayne murders episode. But Bruce was carrying out popcorn as they walked out, but they were followed over into the intersection of Pearl and Phillips Streets. A lot of the times the murder happens in Crime Alley. Here, it's not really an alley. It's kind of right out in the open, which I thought was an interesting, or even more sometimes terrifying choice when you think about it. And they are confronted by two men. One is an unnamed mugger played by actor Clyde Gaytel that, as we've discussed before, was open to interpretation by executive producer and former guest Michael Uslan as possibly being Joe Chill, though others speculate that it's a young version of Bob the Goon. I don't know if you have a vote either way, Johnny, on this one.
I don't have a vote. I think I want to stay in the dark on that one and let the imagination play on that.
Yeah.
You like the mystery once again.
I do.
Yeah.
That's a theme. Yeah.
Either way, some sort of associate with Jack is with them, but really it is the real gunman here is Jack Napier, played by Hugo Blick in the flashback, and where Jack says to Bruce the famous line, "Tell me, kid, have you ever danced with the devil by the pale moonlight?" In that like very slowed down, twisted way. There's something haunting about that flashback that I don't think has really been touched in other versions of the Wayne murders. No matter how many times people joke about having it, seeing it for a million times, I think it still hasn't quite matched how haunting it is in the Burton film. Something not in the movie but also revealed in the scripts is that Bruce is comforted that night by a young officer, Jim Gordon. This is in basically the Sam Hamm '86 script, as well as in the first printing of the Craig Shaw Gardner novelization, depending on which version you pick up. But it's also in the Batman '89 comic where Bruce mentions this, and it kind of becomes canonized into this universe. And it's also seen in this promotional shot that has been going around. You kind of see this in the newspaper that Bruce looks at in the film, but it's never directly stated in the movie that this is Jim Gordon. Pat Hingle was aware of this backstory when you listen to him in some of the behind the scenes interviews, but it's not always, I'm sure that some part of him wanted to play that part of it. It just never ended up happening. Like his comic book counterpart, Bruce presumably decides to seek vengeance and begin his training in his crusade. During this time, however, he elects not to have his photograph taken. He decides to keep himself a mystery. Again, harkening back to Johnny's theme here, keeping himself in the shadows. Maybe it's a way to keep himself private. Maybe there's an association of his parents' death in having his picture all over the news after what happened on the newspaper. But in the original Sam Hamm script, the only existing pictures of Bruce are a group shot where he's blocking his face and another one from 1973 when he's in college. Alexander Knox notes that it's weird that he doesn't like his picture taken, and this evolved into kind of just one line from Vicky about how there's like no pictures of Bruce in their file at the Gotham Globe. And it also sort of explains why Knox and Vicky don't know Bruce by sight in '89, or how there's no reporters saying that, oh, Bruce Wayne was seen at City Hall when Joker and a bunch of mimes killed these mobsters. So that's kind of an interesting nuance that's in this world and is kind of carried over into the 89 comic as well, with Sam Hamm having Bruce basically talking about how he hates being photographed and threatening to basically take the film away from the reporters here. One of my favorite aspects of the sort of hidden clues of the backstories is the armory in 89, where we can kind of presume that he traveled around the world, collected armor from different places where he had training, including Japan, the place that Knox and Vicky had no idea where it was from, and sort of brought it back. And the Topps trading card itself says, quote, these warrior costumes clearly influenced Bruce Wayne when he was designing Batman's distinctive uniform. So we kind of have it. That's as close of a source as we're going to get on this, is the trading cards here. Inevitably, he ends up returning to Wayne Manor, as illustrated here by our friend and patron Logan Wood, in a variation of the art for Batman Year One. Check him out on Instagram at ShaneHelms121. But this is basically the panels from Year One, but it's been remixed with Michael Goff's Alfred and Michael Keaton's Bruce Wayne, of course. So Logan's art will feature a little bit more when we kind of do some behind the scenes type stuff in our Patreon feed. But at some point, Bruce Wayne befriends Harvey Dent, as shown in the Batman 89 comic. And it's unknown when this occurred, but since Harvey grew up in Burnside and had to work his way up, it's unlikely their paths crossed until Dent was already in the DA's office. And with Bruce's help, he kind of ends up winning the election to be the top DA by the time Bruce is making his debut as Batman. I take it during the time, as a Keaton Burton fan yourself, or maybe during the time of post production, did you have a chance to check this comic out during sort of post, Johnny?
89. So I started it. I think I got through the first 3 issues, and I was
Mhm.
buying single issues, as soon as they would hit
Mhm.
the comic store, and then other stuff picked up. I got away from it, and then I thought, well, I've got the hardback, on pre-order. It's going to show up. So the hardback is here. I've not finished it yet. I'm only 3 issues in. You guys have given me some great spoilers here so far.
Oops.
Sorry about that.
I'm joking. No, I've
It's
got
all
to finish
backstory
it.
stuff.
Yeah, the hardback's sitting right over here waiting on me. I got to dive back into it.
So but one of my favorite aspects of that is kind of breaking the Harvey Dent Bruce Wayne friendship into play that Sam Hamm was not able to bring into. I mean, he was able to bring in the script, it just didn't make it into the final movie. And I would have loved to have seen a scene with Keaton's Bruce and Billy D. Williams's Harvey. So the party at Wayne Manor was meant to be Harvey Dent's DA campaign rather than saving the 200th anniversary festival, but it got changed, of course. And there was a deleted scene with Harvey and Bruce that we've discussed before, where Bruce was advising Harvey on how to deal with Joker, and it was kind of implied that Harvey may or may not know that Bruce is Batman. Obviously, that didn't end up panning out in the actual comic, but you can check out our interview with Sam Hamm where we kind of discussed that scene. More art from Logan here of Keaton in a Year One setting, but I'd like to think at some point Bruce does attempt to fight crime, but found that he needed an edge just like in Year One. And I think that really harkens back to Keaton's casting, because the whole reason why Burton said that he wanted to cast Keaton as opposed to somebody who was like an Arnold or a Stallone at the time was because it needed to be believable that this guy needed a bat suit to intimidate someone. Otherwise, it feels redundant. And it needed to be an actor who could convey the psychology, the tragedy of the character, not necessarily somebody who was just the muscles of the character or just physically intimidating. So I know Keaton is your favorite Batman, Johnny. Is that sort of aspect one of the things that you like about the interpretation?
For sure. The vulnerability there too.
Mhm.
I heard Sam Hamm talk about it. I think it was your guys' interview with him. That the whole scene in Vicky Vale's apartment where he encounters the Joker and the bat suit is nowhere to be found. So Bruce is kind of caught with his pants down,
Mhm.
and he's not comfortable and he's very insecure not being Batman. I think that plays right into what you talked about a second ago, where Bruce doesn't like to be photographed. There's a whole kind of underlying identity crisis here, and Bruce not exactly knowing who he is, and because of that he feels more comfortable being somebody else or something else, which is Batman. And
Mhm.
I think that's something that the Keaton films just got perfectly, and I'm not sure the future Batman films, the ones I've seen anyway, have ever really, kind of shown that same vulnerability that Michael Keaton had. And just like you said, he's not a, Keaton was not a Rambo, and he was not a, Stallone and a Schwarzenegger, and he was just a kind of an everyman. And there's just something really interesting about the psychology of Keaton's Bruce Wayne, that, he's drawn to putting on a costume and going out every night and beating people up. He's got so much money, he could probably dump that money into juvenile justice or like reform programs to help keep crime off the streets. But, he would rather go out and beat people up. I think there's a part of his psyche that kind of drives him toward that. And that's always been really, really interesting to me, especially with Keaton.
Yeah, I mean, it's for this specific interpretation. There hasn't really been a ton of exploration on like what his day job is, because Vicky's like, "What do you do?" and then his line is just completely interrupted. But going by the regular comics, we've kind of had discussions on how like, well, he does do both. He does do, he helps funnel the money into the rest of Gotham and helping out that stuff on top of the Batman stuff. But in terms of the Keaton stuff specifically, it hasn't really, they didn't really have much of a chance to explore that, which kind of ties a little bit into one of the aspects that I appreciated about the Oath that I will save for the spoiler section. But basically, at this point, Bruce decides to take the persona of a bat, creating armor made from a material that, according to the script and novelization, is so new that there's no name for it yet, which is pretty cool. During this time, he elects to have a yellow oval symbol around the bat as a target so they don't aim at his head. This is not only in The Dark Knight Returns, but also carries over from the Sam Hamm script. So that then brings us to the first month of Batman, where he encounters a hoodlum named Johnny Gobbs, who was later found dead after falling from a great height. Presumed that he, quote, got ripped and walked off a roof, but it's also very likely that he encountered Batman and just fell during the fight. It's ambiguous because we never see it, and that transitions us right into the opening of the Oath, where Johnny Gobbs' body is found. So there you are in the timeline, Johnny. For the Oath, we have Johnny Gobbs' body found by Officer Joey Barnes and Sergeant Frank Kelly, who is actually the main character of this film that you've made. This is among some of the 8 sightings in just under a month that Knox describes in the 89 film. So let's discuss a little bit about the origins of this, what led you to do this. I understand part of that is that the guy who plays Batman in this, Guillermo Mejia, I don't know if I pronounced that correctly, got himself a cosplay suit from the Cave Creature Creations company.
Yeah, that's right. It's a company down in Colombia, and as I mentioned before, Guillermo is a costumer here in the DC area, and he and I have been friends for a long time. And he, not that he has to consult with me about what his purchases are, but just one day he posts a picture online of him wearing this Batman suit, and I'm just thinking, oh my! And I'm a photographer by heart, and I said, I got to get you over here to the house and let's do a photo shoot, because I want to pretend like I'm Tim Burton for at least like 5 minutes. Just come over so I can turn the lights off and edge light you, and I just want to play with this suit.
Did you shoot this, by the way?
Say again, the movie?
Did you shoot The Oath?
I did, yes.
It looks fucking great, dude. I was like, this cinematography is fucking great.
Oh, thank you, man. No,
Yeah.
I really, really appreciate that.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can draw a straight line from this photo shoot, right into the film. I just wanted to kind of play on that mystery we talked about. I wanted to maybe not focus on the Keaton-esque aspects of Batman, but let's just see if we can make Batman look as a criminal would see him, terrifying, scary. And, it helped my purposes as a filmmaker, because I didn't have to worry about how much my Batman actor actually resembled Michael Keaton. That gets thrown out the window because it doesn't matter. Guillermo's not playing Michael Keaton. Guillermo is Batman, period. And that's really kind of the origin of the Oath. If we could make a film where Batman is this supernatural, dark apparition moving in the shadows that you can feel, even if you can't see him all the time. And, the comparison I always made during filming was he was the shark in Jaws, or he was Michael Myers in Halloween. It was always more interesting when he was just lurking. And the story, from a criminal's point of view, had already been told in the opening scene of Batman 89, where we hear the muggers, Nick and Eddie, talking about the bat as if he's some urban legend. And I knew I wanted a piece of that in our film, but I thought, how cool would it be if we saw that same scene played out, but it wasn't two, muggers talking about Batman? What if it was 2 cops? And how do they feel about this Batman character? And, obviously it kind of grew from there. And I wanted one character, which is Officer Joey Barnes, to kind of be optimistic about Batman, and he's excited by him. And then the other cop, who is Sergeant Frank Kelly, is the older, gruffer guy who says no, there is no bat, because if there is, he would have to go deal with him, and he's just another vigilante if there is one, and he's clearly breaking the law. But the younger cop, Joey Barnes, I really wanted that youthful, idealistic opinion about how cool would it be if Batman was actually out there terrorizing criminals. Like, there's something cool about that. And actually, the notes I gave to that actor, I said, picture your character's apartment. He's probably got a wall that's nothing but maps of all the Alexander Knox Batman sightings that have happened over the last month. Like, he's doing the same stuff in his apartment on a map as what Alexander Knox is doing in the Gotham Globe, and trying to figure out who Batman is and how he operates and what he's doing. And Chris, the actor who plays Joey Barnes, got excited about that city. I know exactly who that is now. And of course, I just told Jerry to be gruff and angry and bitter, and he was pretty good at that. So.
Yeah, he's kind of the Joey Barnes character is kind of the fan inside the movie. If there's like a real life fanboy, it's sort of in there, with what little they know about him so far.
Right. And the Johnny Gobbs thing was a great opportunity. Like, I love Batman '89 a lot, and I knew going into this it was going to be a prequel. I knew right away. I'm like, I'm not sure what's going to happen, but I know it's going to be set on the night Johnny Gobbs died. I know that for sure.
I definitely appreciate it as well. Like, the ambiguity I was describing is still kind of there. We're like, we still don't really know what happened because you find the body. So, like, who knows?
Right.
That's still left, once again, as a mystery. Have some other, there's a bit of a jump. But before we go into the break, I also wanted to shout out to the costuming on this. There was a lot done to make sure that the look of the GCPD cops were authentic in this, which, it definitely does on this. If we look side by side with this and the original Bob Ringwood concept art design that you sent me.
Yeah, this was that was a great morning. I woke up and had a message on Facebook from Bob Ringwood. And I can tell you about that in a second, but that was a great day. But you see how much the costumes actually changed from Bob's original design, which is over on the right. That's a lot more futuristic. There's a lot more, extra panels, even the fur collars, which Bob actually said they created those fur collars for Batman '89. They just didn't use them in production. They decided to go without them. But yeah, we spent a lot of time on those cop costumes, mostly because of the bat suit. It was ready made, it was bought off the shelf from the Cave Creature Workshop. And the cop costumes, we had to go all in and just start from scratch. And we just worked our way up. We found a leather jacket supplier in the UK. And we went through 2 or 3 different versions of the jacket until I found one I liked, because I was being a bit of a perfectionist about that. But it was important to the movie. But we went through about 3 different coat suppliers until I found the one that Jerry's wearing there. And I had that thought, wow, these are coming from the UK. I wonder if we accidentally stumbled on the supplier of Batman '89, which was filmed in Pinewood in the UK. And when I got to talking to Bob Ringwood, he actually mentioned, no, we actually handmade, or at least made every single garment for Batman '89, which you look at all the cops in the last scene when the bat signal fires off. I mean, that's a lot of Gotham police officers. And I can't even, now that I've been through making a couple of these Gotham cop coats and the whole suit, I can't imagine outfitting like 40 of them. But yeah, we actually had the badges custom made. It says Gotham City Police on the badge, which actually the '89 badges didn't even say that. They just said police. They were kind of generic. This is super nerdy stuff, guys. But
that's cool.
No, give it to us.
The hat in '89, the hat was actually wrapped in the same leather to match the coat. That was kind of a bridge too far for us on an indie film budget. So we had off the shelf hats that are fabric and they're not leather. The patch you see on Jerry's right sleeve, that's kind of basically a really close replica of the patches, the police department patches made for '89. We had a guy here in Virginia, Patchazar, who makes, he customizes in small orders of unique patches. And he's already put a disclaimer out there online. He got swamped after The Oath came out because a lot of people wanted that Gotham police patch.
Oh, right.
And he only made 2 of them for it. Maybe I've got an extra one in a box, but he only made 2 or 3 of them. And he had to put a a statement out and says, "Guys, appreciate the support. The movie's awesome, but we don't offer those patches. It was just for the film." But he was getting beat up, and then
Oh man.
yeah, and each of those costumes basically cost probably around $1,200 each, and we needed 2 of them. And again, we don't have a Hollywood budget. This is an indie film, and every dollar counts. And a couple of the ideas for maybe some future stories, I'm kind of having nightmares at night because they might involve dozens of Gotham cops in a police setting, and that keeps me up at night because I don't know how we're going to afford that. But and real quick, I'll circle back to Bob Ringwood. He and I belong to a common Facebook group, and I just posted one night about our Gotham coats that we used for the Oath. And I woke up the next morning, and here's a message from Bob Ringwood, sharing this image of his original concept design.
Mm-hmm.
I'd never seen before. I don't know if you guys have ever seen that. The yellow.
I think we might have put this in our concept art episode.
Have you?
It looks familiar.
I had never seen it. So when I woke up to that message from Bob with this, I mean, my jaw dropped because I love the art too. It's gorgeous. And then he went on a little bit more and answered some questions I had. But that was a great thing to wake up to. And that just happened a couple months ago when we were in post-production, actually. But yeah, a lot of effort went into those cop costumes. I hope it translated.
Oh yeah. No, it looks like the GCPD from '89, as well as just like the attention to detail that you've described is really just like it just shows how much of the labor of love it was for this world and for filmmaking and also your talent as well. So like it's I'm glad, please share as much nerd shit as you can about the behind the scenes stuff, because that's what we want to hear.
Thanks, man. And I got to shout out our wardrobe team too. John Broughton is our wardrobe lead. He did a lot of modifications to those coats. He actually added the epaulettes. The coat didn't come with it. He moved some buttons around, and then I think he tapered the sleeves so the gloves could fit on better. And he did a lot of tailoring to Oz's suit and Bell Bredehoft also. But those guys and Keith Mandeville, those guys did a lot of work wardrobing on everything but the bat suit. There's still a lot of wardrobing in this. Everybody's attention and discussion always kind of goes toward the bat suit, but the reality is that was only one costume out of all the rest of these. And just a big shout out to our wardrobe team. They killed it.
Nice. They did.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, if we haven't hyped the Oath enough, here's your chance, guys. We're going to take a quick break. You guys can check out the Oath, and then when we come back, we'll go all into spoiler territory, all into all the different Easter eggs, the stuff that might not have made it into the movie. All that stuff Johnny will share with us after the break.
Just wanted to announce that I have a new podcast called Gaming Gaiden. It's about Japanese to English translation. In this first season, it will be 10 episodes each season. If you saw the ranking, every Superman video game two-parter we did here on Superhero Stuff You Should Know, you have seen Mike before. So yes, if you like video games, if you've been interested in Japanese ever, we're going to be talking a lot about just Japan in general, Japanese cultural differences as well, and we also are going to have a lot of talk about 90s video game magazines such as Electronic Gaming Monthly, aka EGM. So stay tuned for Gaming Gaiden podcast. It's already out now, y'all. I wanted to tell you about the patreon.com, patreon.com/superherostuffpod, and on that you get the $1 tier. You can join the $1 tier, which gets you the shout out on the board, and either visually or orally, or both at times. We want to do the oral for the most part for newer people. And then the $5 tier gets you a whole new show. This show is every Monday, as you well know, and it's free on YouTube and the What's Nots. And the Patreon show is every Friday at the $5 tier mark. You can, if you want, binge us for $5, and it's like 150 episodes, almost 150 at this point, and you can listen to all that content there. Even the stuff that's been released from the vault, none of that has been the full episode as well. So trying to keep our $5 tier people happy. But yeah, check that out. And then our $10 tier gets you all of the above, plus it gets you a monthly meetup show where you meet up with us monthly, and it's like a Zoom-like call, and we have a topic at hand, or sometimes videos we react to and things like that. and that's at the $10 tier. Every tier that you get, like the $5 tier gets you the $1 tier benefits, and the $10 tier gets you the $5 tier benefits and the $1 tier benefits. So check that out at patreon.com/superherostuffpod. We also got the merch, which is Redbubble, superhousepod.redbubble.com, and on Threadless, superherostuffpod.threadless.com. Get your Bin Man and Indeed Wizard mug, shirt, shower curtains, and all the rest artwork by Stephen Santa Cruz. And please send us some audio at superhousepodcast@gmail.com. A bumper would be great. You too can be part of the show. I'm Thunderwolf Drew on Instagram and Twitter. Thunderwolf Lives as my other YouTube channel, one of my many YouTube channels. And I have also thunderwolfdrew.com has my whole portfolio in one place except for amanorecon.com. That's AMANORECON.com. And that is an original idea that some friends and I are doing, where it is R-rated Power Rangers meets Stranger Things. That's the quick pitch, and it is not a fan film, original idea. We have a pitch video right now on YouTube and on the Indiegogo page. We're campaigning right now as of this, when this episode premieres. And this poster art is by ZacharyJacksonBrownArt.com. And check it out. Please support us on the campaign, and more from that soon. But yes, it's bloody, and if you like that kind of thing, check us out. And that's it, Ben.
Follow us on social media, on Twitter at SuperhousePod, Instagram Superhero Stuff Pod, where we have some different supplemental stuff. I've even analyzed the martial arts stance that the Keaton ornament from The Flash is in, so you can check that out on our Instagram Superhero Stuff Pod, TikTok Superhero Stuff Pod, Vero Superhero Stuff Pod. My website is benwanwriter.com, where you can read a whole bunch of spec scripts, including Gotham, Vampire, Elementary, The Death of Sherlock Holmes, and Curb Your Enthusiasm, Disneyland. If you're fans of any of those shows, check them out and let us know what you think. My YouTube channel is in the description below, including Doctor Who, The Ronin of Time, an audio drama I write, edit, and narrate with the 8th Doctor meeting Miyamoto Musashi. My personal Instagram is benwanwriter. If you like cats, my son, Alfie, my cat, is at Alfie Pennyworth Cat. And if you have an Alfie yourself, then you can get the Whisker Box, the only cat box with a crazy cat lady and gent. And you can even check out another page on that website, superherostuffpod.com/show notes. That includes various show notes for each of our episodes, links to the scripts that we review if they're available online, Amazon links to the stuff we've been talking about, including, Brian Levant's book that he plugged for us, My Life and Toys. So check that out at superherostuffpod.com/show notes.
Lord have mercy, y'all. Do you like hounds? Do you enjoy pooches? Do you find yourself enjoying time spent with that of canines? Talking about dogs, y'all.
As you might have heard, Superhero Stuff You Should Know has now teamed up with BarkBox. For every month, you get a box for your special canine.
Pooches.
Or hounds.
That's right. One free extra month if you go to barkbox.com/superherostuffpod.
Follow the link and you'll get a free extra month valued at $35 and valid for all multi-length plans.
So get the BarkBox for your hound, for your pooch, for your canine.
Your doggo will thank you. All right, you've seen The Oath. Now you're back with us. So let's talk spoilers. This is what we've been trying to get to. So let's see. Andrew's got the first question.
Okay, so what inspired the story of The Oath to be about Sergeant Kelly?
Yeah, so now that you've seen the film, you know it's not a Batman movie. I spent 2 years marketing this movie, a Batman fan film, and it's not about Batman. It's about Sergeant Kelly. The secret is out. Yeah, I mentioned before, like when I originally just wrote the treatment and just the idea for the film, it was all about Batman being kind of the killer in a slasher flick. That's how I envisioned it. A short film that I made prior to this was horror. I'm a horror fan. I love horror, and I like the idea of seeing Batman through the criminal's eyes, and you could almost make that a horror film because Batman is horrifying, right? So when the original concept of the film was, Kelly was just a corrupt cop. He was kind of a, I don't want to say a Lieutenant Eckhart clone, but there were not many redeemable characteristics about Kelly at all. And the thought of the movie was, how cool would it be to see Batman just stalk this corrupt cop to the end of the movie and then give him what he deserves? And, it sounds like a great idea. And visually, I can see how that would work. But when you actually flesh out the story, like, nothing happens. Batman just, pursues this cop and then beats him up. And what does he do? Tie him up and leave him on the steps of City Hall. Like, the story really didn't go anywhere. And, I kind of went back and made a second, third pass at it. And then we started getting into moral ambiguity about, well, how would Batman react to a cop if tonight was his first night ever taking a bribe? Does Michael Keaton, and I'm specifically talking about Keaton's Batman because there's so many Batman, as you know, but how would Keaton handle a cop who's getting ready to turn bad? And he does take the money. It's not like he second guesses himself at the end. No, he takes it. He takes the cash. And then Batman springs into action. But we had a lot of conversations on the back end about the moral ambiguity and how Keaton would react to that. And there were a lot of pretty interesting conversations. The answer is no one knows. It's all just our best guess. But the side that I landed on, and it helped that I was the director of the movie, that helps. But the side that I landed on was that, Batman is the world's greatest detective, right? So he's got a brain. He's going to think things through. And if you're in a city where you don't have many allies and good cops are few and far between, my hunch is Bruce may give this guy a second chance. And it's not really talked about in the film, but the idea is that Batman has basically eavesdropped the entire film. So he's heard the opening scene, with the discussion about the wife, and he's heard everything that's happened. There's no real great way to show that in a short film without just showing Batman listening a lot. But the idea is that, Bruce understood why the cop was doing this. And he basically wanted to scare the hell out of him. He wanted to scare him straight. He wasn't going to, get him off the street and then have one more problem to deal with as opposed to an ally. He just wanted to scare this guy straight. So that then kind of drove everything else that happened in the movie. It drove our fight scene such that it is, because it's so short and so sweet. And I wanted it to be very, a powerful moment in Sergeant Kelly's life where he would kind of get the message that could have been him. And Batman, spoiler alert, guys, like, Batman is a theatrical guy. And, I wanted Batman to really kind of pull out all the stops and put on a show that this cop has never really seen, and do that quickly. And that's kind of, where the fight came out of. But yeah, that's kind of that in a nutshell.
Is the oath a double entendre? Like, it's Batman's oath, but also the cop's oath?
We are a month into this. I think we're at 200,000 views. I've done countless interviews, and you are the very first person who's brought that up or asked that. It is a double entendre in my opinion. I leave it up to other folks. For me, it is less about the oath that Batman is now expecting Sergeant Kelly to fulfill. For me, it's about Sergeant Kelly's oath that he took when he became a Gotham City police officer.
Okay, yeah.
That's what it is to me. Just having some kind of backstage conversations with some of the actors and the folks behind the scenes, some of those guys have talked about it, and they talked about, so Kelly's kind of swearing an oath to Batman, that he's going to stay on the straight path. And to me, it's like, no, Kelly is remembering why he became a cop 25 years ago.
Right.
It took a spark to really, he was going off on the bad path, and he just needed something to kind of give him some purpose and get back. So to me, that's what that means.
He had to see goodness again in some way, like true goodness in a tight spot, very tight spot. Yeah.
And there's not much goodness in the Gotham City of Batman '89. There's not much there.
Yeah.
No, everybody's corrupt.
I think it also works in terms of the kind of early anticipation for the film, where it's just like, it's a prequel to Batman '89. It's called The Oath, and so the automatic assumption is the oath that Bruce Wayne took to, basically wage war on all criminals and that type of stuff. And in a way, this could also be addressing that in a roundabout way of just like, his war on criminals doesn't necessarily have to come down to his fists so much as keeping good men good.
Right.
So I think there's definitely an emotional core to this that I appreciated, which is sort of what I was hinting at earlier, where it's just like the compassion of Batman's character is stuff that, I think we've seen a little bit more in other interpretations, is kind of like not necessarily given a lot of opportunity to show that in the stories of the Burton films. So what I appreciated the most out of this was the fact that he knew the situation. He was able to sort of, as you said, scare him straight. And we sort of end on a more hopeful note than the alternative, which was, the original version, as you described, where it's just like he just beats the shit out of this corrupt cop, and that's the end of that's the end of the story.
Roll the credits.
No lessons learned.
But it
Bones are
looked
broken. So
man.
it's that poignancy that really elevates the material here that I don't think I was expecting, or a lot of people who are watching it were expecting, because as you said, like it's kind of that surprise that it's not really about Batman at all. It's not really the Bruce Wayne origin story. It is kind of another way that Batman can be effective without resorting. I mean, he's still using violence, but not directly
right.
on the guy who is the main character of this.
Right. Yeah.
So,
When
awesome.
we first started this, actually, one of my own family members said they found out I'm doing a Batman fan film, and they said, "John, what could you possibly say about Batman that has not been said in 80 years?" And my answer was nothing. But I can say a lot about a guy named Sergeant Frank Kelly, who
Mm,
has to live and work in that world, and that's kind of what our story is about. But it was a tough film to kind of promote and market. Because it's not an action film; it's a character drama, so you're already up against expectations there. B, despite all the marketing material and the posters and all that stuff that's got Batman all over it,
mhm,
it's not a Batman film. It's a film that has Batman in it. And I would
mhm,
say that Jaws is not a movie about a shark. Jaws is a movie about a chief of police who's scared of the water. The
mhm,
shark just happens to be in it, and the shark is on the poster, and the shark is on the
mhm.
novelization and the calendar. But there's a lot of Jaws parallels there, I think.
Oh,
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah.
So one of the
Awesome.
cool things behind the scenes that I found out about from discussions with you, as well as sort of looking at your behind the scenes videos on the channel, was the fact that one of the consultants on this was Batman '89 movement double and former guest of our show, Carl Newman. So could you speak a little bit to that sort of working relationship?
Yeah, no, Carl is just such a great guy. I'm just really happy to see Carl kind of coming out and getting the recognition and credit that he's deserved all these years. A lot of people, when they think of doubles, they immediately think of a stunt double, or
Mhm,
a riding double, or some other type of double. And for those who don't know, Carl was a professionally trained ballet dancer, and he was a movement double. And they brought him into Batman '89 when they needed Batman to have some poise and athleticism and grace and elegance and these things that ballet dancers can do. And when we actually started production, I didn't know Carl. I got to know Carl just virtually. He and I have never met face to face, with him
mhm,
being in the UK, but I got to know him as production was wrapping for The Oath. But our Batman actor, who you see here in these three shots, that's Guillermo. And someone had suggested to him, Carl is actually really open to talking to people about Batman or anything else for that matter. And
mhm,
maybe you should hit him up on Instagram and see if he's got any tips for you. And Guillermo said, "Yeah, I will do that." So Guillermo actually reached out direct to Carl and asked about, hey, do you have any advice? I'm doing an independent film. I'll be in the bat suit. Do you have any advice about movement and that type of thing? And again, this is secondhand, but Guillermo said Carl came back and just kind of instructed him to, always be in the moment. Don't try to think 3, 4, 5 steps ahead. Just concentrate on what you're doing right then, where your foot is landing right now. It's a very small fraternity of people who have worn that Batman suit,
Yeah.
and I'm not one of them. I've never put on that thing, but I am given to understand that you have no peripheral vision, you can't hear in it. Guillermo's, the suits are all made slightly differently, but the suit that Guillermo's wearing here is actually the Batman Returns inspired suit,
mhm,
and that's 25 pounds of rubber on him, and it completely affects all his movements. We tried to rehearse the fight, before with the fight choreographer, just to see how the suit would move and just kind of work through as much of that as we could in pre-production, so we didn't have any surprises. when we were shooting out on the streets at 3 o'clock in the morning. And Guillermo, as he frequently reminds me, before we did the Oath, I think the longest he had spent in the bat suit was like 2 or 3 hours. And then when we shot the Oath, we shot his scenes back to back 2 nights in a row. And I think we had him in the suit like 8 or 9 hours each night. And that's a lot to ask. That's 25 pounds he's wearing, and it gets heavier. It gets heavier as the night goes on, you know?
I'm sure. Yeah, I remember seeing in one of the videos someone commenting, being just like, "But that's the Batman Returns suit." And I think it might have been your reply, but the channel's reply was that Bruce is in universe testing out the prototype of this of what's going to be the future version of this. And I'll give you one more thing. Maybe he's testing the future version of it, but he's putting it on hold because he's waiting to develop that glider cape.
There you go.
Returns. So.
Oh, I like that. Yeah. Yeah, I knew we would take some flack for that, but that's the reality is Guillermo's costume, once he got it, and he prefers the return suit. That's just his choice, and that's the suit that he bought. And that suit was the genesis of this entire film. So once we wrote the film, and I wasn't budging on it being a prequel to 89, it was going to be that no matter what. And I'm still looking at the suit and I'm thinking, well, how many of my family members would really know the difference? Like we know,
right.
Guys like us doing Batman podcasts.
None of them would know, man. I don't think nobody would know.
They look at that, but what they do know is they say, "Oh, that's from the Tim Burton movies," and I'm like, you know what? That's good enough for me. And we didn't have the budget. I wasn't going to go back and buy a whole new 89 suit just so
Guillermo, return that and get another one, please.
Yeah.
What you quick nerdy question about the shoot, but what'd you shoot on?
So this initial photo, the photo shoot you're looking at right here, that's actually a entry level. That's a Nikon D3000 or maybe a D3300, but it's a DSLR. It's not an expensive camera. Probably shot it on a 50 prime lens. I'm guessing at least the shot on the left we did. And yeah, that's actually the same camera that I shot my first indie film with a few years before. And me and that little camera have a lot of history together. And it's just my go-to anytime I'm doing a quick shoot. It's my performs really well in low light.
What about for the Oath though? What'd you shoot on for the Oath?
Yeah, the Oath was a Blackmagic 6K Pro.
Okay, and we're gonna get nerdier here, guys. But you finished in with DaVinci, color correction.
My favorite piece of software on the planet, like DaVinci Resolve. And this is not a commercial. We are not sponsored by DaVinci Resolve.
Not yet.
Not yet. But man, like I came from Sony Vegas, and they streamlined that platform, and it is. I don't know if you use it, Andrew, but it is a godsend. It's my favorite piece of software.
I mainly use Premiere, which is an editing software, not color correction. I know you can edit now in DaVinci, but DaVinci was originally for color correction, and that gets back again to your cinematography, which was just really great. And I think another good reason to bring this kind of nerdy stuff up is if anybody else out there wants to make something like this, there's the info. You could also probably rent a Blackmagic camera if you can't afford one. So if you kiddies out there want to recreate or do something in the vein of the Oath, there you go.
It's never been this easy. You can go to the University of YouTube. You can learn.
Yes.
You can learn everything you need to know. I'm not knocking film school or anything, but I did not go to film school. But I've certainly learned a lot from YouTube over the last few years on my kind of short journey as a filmmaker. And there's just so much information out there.
Yeah, there definitely is. Also, was the rain real?
Yes and no. It depends on the shot.
Okay. So I was thinking that you had to ADR every line, right?
Some of it was salvageable.
See, okay, there we go already.
we ADR'd. Here's the thing. We recorded the entire film in ADR after we wrapped. Because the sound, like the first scene in the alley with Johnny Gobbs, that it was a tile factory. They're in there cutting ceramic tile.
Oh God, yeah.
And it didn't come up on our scouting trip. We shot there on a Thursday night, and that factory is operational until like midnight on Thursday nights. So great. Any other night of the week, we actually talked about flipping the schedule and trying to shoot there the next night when it would be quiet. But kind of the added bonus is the lights are on in that factory and they look great on camera. So it gave us some really cool, lights and leading lines and things like that. The sound was terrible. So we re-recorded everything in ADR. I put the ADR in, and ADR is tough because you're asking your actors. And in our case, I think we were maybe 8-9 months after filming. So we're asking these guys to sit down. They were out in an alley with street noise and buses and crew and stuff happening. And now they're in a small room with a microphone, and we're asking them to deliver the same intensity of their performance that they think they did on the street 8 months before. ADR is tough like that. And I got the ADR, I put it in, and it didn't feel right to me. So like sometimes I had to grab a word here and there and just kind of really get into the audio and grab a line from ADR and mix it with what we got on set. But there was a lot of background noise reduction going on to cancel out the tile factory. And then we ran into similar audio issues in the scene with Oz Keenum, who was our mobster. But yeah, we actually did ADR the entire film, but I didn't use all the ADR we recorded.
Okay.
Yeah, like another thing for people out there, every single shot at a beach or something like that has been ADR'd, all of them ever, just because of the sound and the environment, the wild sound or whatever. Anyway, back to the scheduled program. Yeah. I wanted to cover that. I was interested in that part.
I mean, I think for those who aren't like well versed in like the filmmaking process, I think it's just enlightening to know how much is like involved, where it's not just like, oh yeah, let me just take my phone and just film this guy and then it'll show up exactly studio quality. Like, no, that's not how it's gonna.
It's gonna get to that point eventually, I feel like, but not just yet. I mean, with like the programs like DaVinci and shit, you're gonna be put on the Burton Gotham filter eventually, and you'll be set. We're not there yet, but give it 5 years.
I want that.
Yeah, no, yeah. I'd want that too. We'd put that in every episode.
Yeah, we would shoot this podcast in that filter, just a fucking like that painting that you had and everything behind.
But let's see. They're able to see it a little bit behind you, Johnny. But
the Gotham painting,
about the Gotham painting, yeah.
So it's hanging on the wall behind me. I guess that's the big spoiler here. I didn't really want that in the movie. I actually just wanted new artwork in here for this room. So no, that's not true.
I can relate.
Yeah, exactly. So no, I knew we were, going to be paying a lot of homage to Batman '89. That's actually the only reason our film has opening credits, which you typically wouldn't do for a short film. Mm-hmm. But I wanted the opening credits. I wanted that score, which we can talk about in a minute. But I wanted all that to really set the stage for the rest of the movie and put people in the mood for 1989. So I contacted a good friend of mine named Joe Gransky, who is a portrait artist, and he typically works in oil, and he does, portraits of, people's wedding days or their pets. He does a lot of stuff for Comic Cons and like the cosplay community. So if you've ever seen like a really good oil painting of a costumer, as Harley Quinn or as, Batgirl or something, it might be Joe's painting because he does a lot of business with that. Mm-hmm. And Joe is a huge Batman fan, like enormous. He actually has a credit in the film as a story consultant as well, because he and I got to talking quite a bit about Bruce's moral ambiguity and his tolerance for that. But anyway, I asked Joe, I said, I want to do an homage to the Brian Bishop scenic painting that opened up Batman '89. I said, I don't want to just rip that off. I said, I want a view of the city that we're all familiar with, but just from a slightly different perspective. Give me a view of that same skyline about a half mile down the river, and what does it look like from there? So I wanted it to really be our own. And of course, Joe was like, yeah, I'm going to love that. So he cranked out a test painting first, which is what you're looking at here. This is the original prototype. This was just to look at, how the kind of the haze or the mist at the bottom is going to look on camera, the color temperature of the lights in the buildings versus the moonlight. And this was a small piece. I think it's 16 by 20, it says here. And this was his first prototype, and we learned a lot from this. And we actually ended up putting this up on our Indiegogo crowdfunder, and somebody nabbed it in like an hour. So some lucky fan got this one. And then he took the lessons from this and he created the actual production painting that's hanging behind me on the wall, which I think is maybe 24 by 36, maybe. And that's the one that ended up going into the film itself. A lot of digital enhancement, after the fact. That's just kind of me working on it in post. It was in DaVinci. Andrew, by the way, it's not only an editor and a color grading software. It's also, you can do a lot of After Effects and
Really? They have that in there too? I got to get this DaVinci.
they've got Fairlights. I swear, this is not a commercial for DaVinci. I swear.
I gotta get that DaVinci.
You do. Check the link in the comments for a discount code or something.
Yeah. Actually, we don't have it yet, but yeah, it's maybe after this episode.
Yeah. Maybe. But we went in and I think we added like 250 street lights, like digitally onto those streets. And we, put lights up on the bridges. And the goal was, to put some traffic in there and some moving cars and a lot of this. But reality is the clock was ticking, that was very late in the process. We needed to get the thing done. And one of the hardest things about creating art is knowing when to call it done. Because if you don't do that, you will continue to try to perfect it for the rest of your life and you won't ever finish anything. So
there's a phrase I heard that relates to this. Good art is never finished. It's only abandoned.
That's exactly right.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
For real.
But Joe did a killer job on that painting and now I've got new wall art. So
I think that also sets the tone too for it, both the opening credits, but also that shot. Because if you were lazy about this, Johnny, you could have just used the shot from '89. But I think because it's just like, oh yes, this is going to be something special because of the amount of love that's there to replicate, not reuse a copy, but to replicate and give you that feeling from a different perspective.
Yeah.
And then of course you mentioned the opening theme from is it Francesco
De Andrea? Yeah. Yeah, amazing composer. We actually had 3 composers work on The Oath. Francesco's music was who we used the most. But he's an Italian composer. He's actually in France. And we actually licensed a lot of his tracks for me to edit to. I love to edit to music. It just kind of gives me, the urgency and the beat and the rhythm that I need. And 9 times out of 10, like the temp tracks that I'm using during the editing process, 9 times out of 10, that's what's going to end up in the final film, just because I get so used to hearing it. And if you try to put something else in, I just never like it as much as what I first heard. So we licensed a lot of Francesco's tracks. March of the Giants, which is the opening theme to The Oath and the closing theme to The Oath, because I love it so much. The first time I heard that, I thought, man, like if you were to ask somebody to create a alternate dimension score to Batman 89 that doesn't sound like the Batman theme, but yet it calls back to it and it has its own vibe, like that's the song. And when I heard that, I'm like, well, that's done. That's it. Like the opening credits to the film were done like probably 6 months before we actually started shooting. I just knew that was going to be the opening. And as I got to work with Francesco and get to know him more, we actually did commission him to score the fight scene. So he did write some original music for The Oath, specifically the fight theme. And he got that over to us. And then the other composers I got to mention are Jordan Hatfield and Jacob Pietras, who is in Poland, actually. So you look at the bat suit, made in Colombia, some consultation from Carl Newman in the UK, composers in France and Poland. And then we shot the thing here in Virginia, and some of our producers are in Chile and South America. So, I mean, it's really it's as much as I like to think this is a little backyard Batman fan film project. It really is kind of a network of folks all around the world coming together to make this thing. So just big shout out to all those guys.
Yep. I mean,
it takes a village.
It does. It's an international production.
International village.
Yeah.
The UN.
So let's go into some of the Easter eggs that I'm kind of dying to go into. You sent me a whole list, Johnny. I got our assistant Dan to sort of help us with some of the comparison stuff on it. So take it away.
Nice. So this is a no-brainer. We've put out several short films. This is the only one where we decided to start our logo, the Chaotica logo, on a blue cloudy sky. And obviously we did that to give Warner Brothers one more reason to shut us down.
We dare you.
Oh, I know. And I pushed can I push the line just a little bit further
You
here?
can't trademark the clouds.
I know, but obviously this is
Slightly different clouds.
Yeah.
this is the only film that our logo has ever appeared on a cloud sky. We typically don't do that. It's normally like a boring black screen, but obviously, you guys know the vibe we were trying to capture, and we started that right when the music kicks up, and that's when you see our logo instead of Warner Brothers, and once the music kicks up, those clouds fade away into a kind of a smoky blue darkness, and really our homage to Batman '89 started right there with our own film studio logo.
Awesome.
Nice.
All right. Next, well, there's a few more before we get into this one, right? But you were telling me about how obviously there's the Johnny Gobb stuff, as well as some like Easter eggs in some of the names. So like First and Pratt Streets being homages to Anton First and Roger Pratt, who was the director of photography.
Yeah. For the police dispatcher there in the first scene reports that Jimmy Atlas is spotted on the corner of First and Pratt, and I thought that was actually pretty cool because when you hear it, you just assume First is a number, like First Street.
Oh yeah.
You don't assume it's
right.
You don't assume it's FURST as in Anton First Street. So that was kind of one of our first Easter eggs. Was he's at the corner of First and Pratt. So Pratt is named after Roger Pratt, who was the director of photography for Batman. Who's another guy that I would love to, be able to just kind of talk to. He also shot a couple of the Harry Potter films as well.
Wow.
Yeah, but Roger Pratt and Anton First, that's where we got First and First and Pratt. Yep.
Gotcha. Yeah, that was also something that had occurred to me when watching it, when I think it was mentioned First and Pratt. And since I'm already in the 89 headspace, I'm thinking, oh, that's a nice Anton First thing. I forgot about the first as the number. The first logical step, somebody who's not.
You're just thinking of Anton only.
If somebody just said on First Street in general, I wouldn't think Anton First. It's mainly because watching this, and I'm like, okay, we're in the world.
Right, I got you.
I'm glad that landed like it did. Then that was from the very first draft of the screenplay. It was that line was written as First Street, FURST.
Perfect.
Nice.
Awesome. Then we have this wanted poster of Jimmy Atlas, but you noted to me some of the fine print stuff I did not catch until you pointed these out to me, Johnny.
Yeah, and it's always amazing to me. Our YouTube guys, the commenters on YouTube, it's always amazing to me what they catch and what they don't. And some of them, this one.
So we got under Jimmy Atlas, we got associates Carl Grissom, Jack Napier, but also Sophia Falcone. So that hints at a Falcone existing in the Burtonverse, and you might be happy about what you read sometime in the comic, is all I'm going to say, Johnny.
Oh, good.
So moving further, we also have a flyer of the anniversary celebration, as well as the Harvey Dent campaign over here. So that was cool. And I think one of the more obvious ones as well is the back fist, the Keaton back fist, without looking.
You see how Guillermo's on the left, obviously. You see how he's cheating a little bit. He's trying his best to look at Oz. You see that?
So tell us the story about this, because I think you mentioned to me what happened here, and it sounds pretty funny.
I'll tell you why he's cheating a little bit, because probably the take before this, or two takes before this, he cracked Oz right in the face with that back. There was not a lot of movie magic going on where your actors are actually 3 feet away from the fist. It was well, I'll start from the beginning. Our fight choreographer, Jason White, he's a great guy. He's a martial artist. He and I met. We were working on the set of The Walking Dead World Beyond, and he and I got to know each other then. And he's a great fight choreographer. And we brought him on. He's a big Batman fan. He's an artist. And we brought him on to do some fight choreography with us. And he talked me and Guillermo out of doing the bat fist in pre-production, because we both wanted that nod back to Keaton. And Jason was just like, you shouldn't do that, because Guillermo can't hear. He has no peripheral vision, and he's going to crack Oz in the face, and it's going to, potentially, obviously, harm Oz, but it's also going to slow your production down, because he's going to have a nosebleed for the next hour and all this stuff. And we said, you know what, cooler heads prevailed. Jason, you're right. Jason didn't come with us to set. Our filming location was about 100 miles away. Jason wasn't there, and we're shooting the fight, and I looked at Guillermo, and there was actually something that we had in there that wasn't working, and I didn't like it. And I looked at Guillermo and he looked at me and I said, how you feel about the bat fist? And he said, bat fist is back in. So we put the bat fist in. We did a bunch of takes of it. We told Oz plays the mobster there, Jimmy Atlas. We told Oz, we said, this is going to be on you to manage your distance between your face and that fist. So just, keep track. We rehearsed a bunch, but don't come too close to it because Guillermo really doesn't have much control over where that fist is going to fly. And Oz says, yep, I got it. So we did a few takes. And then one of those, Oz got too close to it, got the bat fist right in the nose. I mean, he was okay. Nothing severe. But it's a great blooper. Like, it's a classic blooper. And the sound effect, because we obviously had the mics rolling and all that, and the sound of that fist hitting Oz in the face, like, there was no post-production needed on that noise. It was just a wham, just a wham. Yeah, so we didn't use the take in the film, but
you used the sound from that take.
we used the sound, I think.
Yes.
And we do have some. We actually have a behind-the-scenes feature coming out on the Chaotica Studios YouTube channel that's just about Oz getting cracked in the face. So we talked about it for like 3 minutes. But yeah, that's why you see William or Guillermo. I call him William sometimes. Guillermo's cheating a little bit to make sure he doesn't hit Oz again in the face.
Gotcha. Yeah, I'm curious how many times. I guess, I mean, it looks like it might be Dave Lee here in the actual movie. Like, if he actually ended up hitting the stuntman in this shot in '89, I'd love to hear the story behind that. But I mean, you got to have that in. And I'm glad that you guys ended up saying, like, you know what, let's do it. And Oz sacrificed his face for a second.
It got a real good applause at the premiere. We had a private screening premiere in a movie theater, and I will tell you that the bat fist got the desired result.
Nice.
Desired reaction.
So yeah, no, that part was awesome. Other Easter eggs we have here: the Vogue magazine is clearly the same one from '89.
Oh my God! So was this an eBay purchase? Sorry, Ben, I cut you off. That's what you were going to ask, though.
But I'm curious. I was curious how did you make this magazine?
Yeah, we guerrilla film made this one. You can get that magazine. It actually is a real Vogue magazine from the '70s. So, like, Jerry Hall, obviously, is a beautiful model. And you guys might have covered this on one of your other shows, but Jerry Hall is, just a gorgeous model. And she was on the cover of Vogue magazine back in the '70s. And it was that magazine. And they just used it for Batman '89 and put Jack Napier's shoes on it. And, there was a lot of conversation that we had pre-production about, okay, wait, is that magazine one of a kind? Is it kind of Jerry Hall's or Alicia? Is it her prized possession because she's on the cover? Or is that a current magazine that you could go out and buy it on the newsstand right then in Batman '89? So we had a lot of conversations about whether that was a trophy or whether that was a magazine that anybody could go out and buy.
Yeah.
And I looked at it from, well, it's a prop. I want to do another callback to '89, something that fans will get. So I'm going to say that those magazines are being sold by the hundreds right now down at the 5 and Dime shop. So the magazine made it in. I've not received a cease and desist from Vogue magazine yet. And I'm hoping if Warner Brothers doesn't shut me down, Vogue magazine won't. But and to answer your question, that's you can get that magazine on eBay. I just did not want to pay those prices for it.
Yeah.
Probably I'm bidding against other Batman collectors too, I'm sure. But we actually got that image. I think we printed off a glossy 8.5 by 11 or something, trimmed it down to size, and actually stapled it onto I don't know if it's like a Field and Stream or some other type of magazine. the pictures inside are not going to match what's on the cover.
It's a Thrasher.
That does bring up a good point. I wonder how many hardcore '89 fans are buying, spending hundreds on eBay on this issue just so they can put their feet on it on their coffee table.
Why is this issue so goddamn popular?
We've only had out of all the YouTube comments that we've gotten with, I said, 200,000 views and hundreds of comments. I think only one person has commented on the Vogue magazine. So.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Still, it's a great detail, and also it hadn't occurred to me until you just talked about it that if it's from the '70s, of course it's not going to look this new. Of course you would have to do something to it or recreate in some way for it to look like a magazine fresh off the rack. So that's just it's another testament to just the labor of love.
I think I would assume in this world this is just a new magazine for that month. That's just what I would think of it.
That's what one of the other guys said too. He said if because I think her apartment or Carl Grissom's apartment, I mean, it's just loaded with pictures of her, right? So
Yeah.
if this was a prized possession from 10 years before, like it would probably be framed and up on the wall, not just
Yeah.
sitting on the coffee table, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
this is like her latest
exactly.
one.
I mean, there's a lot of time. They mix a lot of times up anyway, right? With all the Art Deco stuff and there wasn't that much Art Deco in the 80s. I mean, come on, we're really playing with time here.
Yeah,
Right.
for sure. We also had some audio Easter eggs as well in terms of streets. Another one was, one was not an audio. It's the envelope that has Sergeant Kelly's address on Finger Street, obviously Bill Finger. But also in the audio, we hear from Peter McElroy, who's the anchorman from '89. So you had auditions for many voice actors for this, is what you told me.
We did, yeah. There's some great websites out there where you can, audition voice actors without ever, meeting them. Voice
Mhm.
acting is a job you can do from anywhere on the planet. And we put the announcement out there. I actually included a clip of Peter McElroy from Batman '89. I said, "This is the voice that we're trying to emulate,"
Mhm.
and ended up with a guy. I'm forgetting his name. He's credited, but I think we auditioned more than 50, or we heard more than 50 different auditions. And one guy, I think he's in New York, just nailed it. To me, it sounded just like Peter McElroy from
Mhm.
Batman. Actually, funny Easter egg, before we went that route, we were actually going to show the TV during that last scene, and it wasn't going to be Peter McElroy as the anchorman delivering the action news update. It was actually going to be, was her name Becky, who
Oh
died?
yeah.
So
Mhm.
we had an actor lined up to play Becky. We were going to do the coat with the shoulder pads and the bob haircut.
Oh,
We
nice.
actually had an actress lined up to play Becky, and at the last minute, I said, that we don't really need to throw another face at the audience that late into the film. We can do this with VO and just
Mhm.
do some audio. So
Right,
that's how
right.
we landed on Peter McElroy, and yeah, I'm proud of finding that guy. I think he sounds a lot like this guy.
Yeah, no, I love that little detail as well when I was listening to that part. Also, is there's Gotham Globe newspapers that have Alexander Knox's name, of course, but also McPhee, who deep dive into the novelization. This is a hell of a deep cut, Johnny. McPhee is the name of the character in '89, according to the novelization, who says, "Well, well, Count Dracula" to Knox when he walks in. Only featured in the novelization. That's the only time that name pops up. But you glean that from the
Wow.
novelization and put that in as an Easter egg in this one. So again, just goes to show how much love there is for the Burton verse in this. So that's pretty awesome. And one of my favorite details is coming up, which is to you the future of Sergeant Kelly after this movie is that he will walk in a week later into Access Chemicals with James Gordon and be the guy in between Gordon and Eckhart here, right? Do I got the right guy?
You got
I
the right
imagine I
game.
do.
You
Yeah.
got to squint just a little bit and picture a clean shaven, sober Sergeant Frank Kelly, who's on the up and up, and you got to squint just
Yeah.
a little bit. But.
He's ready to fight justice. His wife is getting better. He's cleaned himself up. He's finally had a chance to shave, and he's ready to help out. So, no, that's pretty awesome on this. So we have this, and then also I wanted to kind of go into some of the stuff that was sort of altered. You said that Becky was originally in this, but I also know that this little girl was almost in this. This is the quote unquote ragamuffin girl, as she's described in the script, who gets saved by Batman in a deleted scene from the Joker's goons. And she asks him, "Isn't Halloween?" And you shared with me that this girl, well, not literally this actress, but this type of character was almost in it instead of the homeless man we saw in the movie.
Yeah, that's right. Again, we knew certain things needed to happen in our story. So we would establish those in our script, but then we would say, okay, how can we make this come right out of Batman '89? So the
Mhm.
idea with the bum, who's played by Mike Stumbo in our film, the thought was, what if we made this someone we've already seen, on the street? And the idea was about the bum, or even about this little girl. Apparently, she's homeless and she's out living on the streets, making a life for herself, I guess. But the idea with the bum was, maybe Batman actually, again, being the world's greatest detective, maybe he has a network of trusted agents, who are out there, the eyes and ears of the street, when Bruce Wayne can't be there. And that's kind of where the idea of the bum came from. And I thought for a second, man, wouldn't it be great if we could do the Easter egg and maybe bring the girl back and have something there, at least as an homage for people to be like, oh, there's the girl, even if she wasn't delivering the same lines that Mike Stumbo ended up delivering. And I'm not saying she would get the money at the end or anything like that, but if she was just there, if she was just there, if we found a way to get her, on camera, and there's actually, like, we're separating the men from the boys here with some Batman 89 nerddom, but there's actually at the start of 89, when Batman's holding one of the muggers, off the roof, and it looks down and you see the alley below, there's actually like a golden retriever that runs by. And again, we're separating men from boys here on this one.
Man.
So there's a golden retriever that runs by, and you hear the audio in there with the dog barking, and I'm like, I got to get a golden retriever for our set. I just want to have him run by, so the one guy on YouTube could be like, hey man, I saw your golden retriever. That's awesome, man. But anyway, long story short, we didn't get the girl. We didn't get the golden retriever, but we did get Mike Stumbo, who plays the bum. And he did a great job looking dingy and dirty and tired and haggard at 2 a.m.
So
I love bookends though.
Yes.
No, I think bookend stuff, him in the beginning and in the end is great. So I appreciated that.
I wanted to share this is Easter egg to you actually about Mike Stumbo's character. So when I grew up with Batman 89, I also, like, the companion piece to me, even though it's not really related, was the comic The Untold Legend of the Batman. Was that one that you were ever familiar with or grew up with?
I never had that one as a kid. I had a lot of them, but that was one I did not have.
So one thing I distinctly remember in issue 3 of that is that Batman does have a network, kind of like the Baker Street Irregulars for Sherlock Holmes, of homeless people who give him information. One of them is named Poet, who looks a lot like Mike Stumbo.
Wow.
1982.
Oh, if I had known that 2 years ago, like, Stumbo's wardrobe would be completely different. Oh, that's great.
Different hat at the most. But yeah, to me, I was watching that. I'm like, wait a minute, that's the guy from the Untold Legend of the Batman in my head.
I wish I could bullshit you on that one and say, yep, that was the plan. No, that's news to me. That's awesome. I love that.
So yeah, just one little thing for you. And then the last thing I wanted to ask you in terms of stuff that didn't make it in was something that I discovered in a little document you sent me, which is that we almost got the ninja wheels that we did not get in the movie. So in the original Sam Hamm script, Batman uses ninja wheels a fair amount of time, and then in the one of the behind the scenes documentary, we have this shot where the ninja wheels are actually part of the fucking door that is in the bat suit is housed in. We did not get to see this in the movie, but they were actually designed and made for the movie. They just never showed up in the final film. But you guys were considering actually bringing that into this.
Yeah, we were. That was one of the things, and those ninja wheels are also pictured in the old movie book as well. It shows a lot of the gear laid out on the table, and the ninja wheels are there, and you can tell they actually made them. And I went to a metalsmith and said, hey, here's the design. I said, I do want them to be metal. I'm not quite sure how I'm going to endanger the lives of our cast and crew yet, but I know I want them to be metal, and I know I want to be able to, like, use them like a throwing star. If I throw them at a piece of wood, the damn thing had better stick in there. That's the idea. And the metalsmith was going back and forth. He's like, well, it's going to probably be a lot more money than I expected it to be honest. And I took another pass at the script, and you guys have seen The Oath. At what point is Batman going to be throwing a ninja?
Oz is already getting hit in the face.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and it was actually, the ninja wheel was actually a really good, like, reminder for me in pre-production that, like, hey, remember, like, stay centered here. Remember what your story is. Remember what your story is not.
Right.
If I'm left unsupervised, like, I would. This room would be like, it would be the Batcave command center. I would have consoles, and I would have a Batmobile, and I would show how the Batwing takes off, and I'm just like, at some point, like, I had to remind myself, this is Sergeant Frank Kelly's story. It's not about ninja wheels.
Right.
And so we cut the ninja wheels from the project, but I really wanted to show them because that's a cool piece of 1989 history that I thought we could show, but there's it's about the story, man. It's not about the ninja wheels. So.
You got to save it for the Oath too. So
That's right. That's exactly right.
Yeah, and I also like the idea of it being kind of like, oh, he's come back from his training in Japan, and so like he's used to this, but like he's evolving it into the batarangs, that type of aspect. But I think the right Easter eggs won out. There's an alternate reality where we don't get this movie because you're still waiting on the golden retriever and the ninja wheels and all this other stuff. So thankfully the right things won out on this, and it's had a hell of a reception. You've sent us these pictures of the premiere as well, and the fan response has been fantastic as far as I've seen.
Yeah, it's in all honesty, I've actually expected to take a lot more flack from Batman fans about this movie, and I've really not gotten much. All the comments, most of the comments, the vast majority have been incredibly positive. The people who really get the movie and get what it's about, they really get it. Like they're all in. They love the kind of the humanitarian stuff that you guys mentioned, that side of Bruce. They love that it's not about Batman. They love that it is about a side character that is original, for us in our story, who has to live and work in this world. The fans who really get that, like they love it. The only really kind of negative comments I've seen out there are, one guy actually compared us to Zack Snyder and basically said, you need to, if you're going to, compete with Zack Snyder, your audience, is going to expect a lot more action and stuff. And I'm just like, I appreciate you watching our film. I didn't respond, but I just said, to myself, I said, I appreciate you taking the time to watch our film, but man, that was a point missed. The point flew right over that guy's head, I think.
Like, obviously you're going into the Burton verse anyway.
Well, there's also kind of an interesting, weird compliment to that too. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, Andrew, but like,
no, it's okay.
Like basically saying like, well, you're competing with Zack Snyder, and you're like, dude, I'm a dude who went through Indiegogo for this film,
right?
Like, we're not really trying to compete with that at all.
No, absolutely not. We had a very small story to tell in the very dark corners of Gotham '89 that we all know and love, and that's what we wanted to tell. We never wanted to. This was not an action film with Batman and the Batmobile and the Batwing and the Batboat.
I contacted Boeing to see what we could do about a Batwing.
Yeah.
They said they'd get back to me.
Yeah, but
he evolves the Batwing and flies overhead, and he jumps out of it to stop Jimmy Atlas.
Hey, is this Jimmy Boeing? Yeah, I'd like a Batwing, please. What can you do for me?
Indiegogo didn't have the funds for us for that one.
There's the Batwing tier. The what do you call it? The add-on perk or whatever it's called.
We disassemble it at the end, and you get a piece of the Batwing to take
right.
with you.
Yeah.
But our premiere, like this was actually a surreal night. We had a packed house, and it was really surreal to kind of see the product up on screen with a group of people, because I'd seen the movie, several times a day for many, many, many months, and I got really close to it. And by that I mean I got really, like, I was numb to it. I was numb to, if the tones and the beats were still the same as I thought they were 9 months ago. Like, I was very numb to the movie, having worked with it so much, and to finally like get it up there, show it on the big screen at a private screening for our premiere, like that was a really cool way to see it and watch other people enjoy it, And I sat in the back of the room and kind of creepily like watch people to make sure they're like laughing at the right time and make sure they're into it and getting what I think they need to get out of it. But it was a really fun night, great night for the actors too.
Oh, I'm sure.
That's
Awesome. Well, Johnny, thanks for joining us. Where what's next for you, and where can people find you?
Yeah, we're actually we were right in the middle of production for a Star Trek fan film.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so it's huge. We've actually got about a $40,000 budget through Indiegogo right now, which
Holy crap.
It's the largest, the highest funded Star Trek fan production in the last 6 or 7 years. And it's called Farragut Forward. It's actually a continuation of the long-running Starship Farragut web series, which is one of the first and original Star Trek fan series that started on YouTube back in 2005.
Wow, that's the first year YouTube came out.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Check out Starship Farragut. It's they've been doing this stuff for a long time. I'm relatively new to the Farragut family. My company, Chaotica Studios, partnered with Farragut Films, and they brought me on to shoot and direct Farragut Forward, and it's their first. Their original web series was set in the 1960s Star Trek universe, and now we are making the jump to the Wrath of Khan era. So they
Okay.
brought me in to kind of shoot and direct the Wrath of Khan era, which is much more kind of my style, the darker, more cinematic. Wrath of Khan, Undiscovered Country. If you guys are Trekkies, so we are right in the middle of production for that. Our production schedule is actually about 14 months long. So we shot a lot in October. We're shooting in January. We're shooting in March. We're shooting in June, and then we're trying to get post wrapped up October through December. So it's a monumental task, and we're still funding on Indiegogo for that. Check out Farragut Forward. And then you mentioned an Oath sequel. You are not the first person to throw some ideas. And what I will throw out there is I've actually got 2 outlines for 2 more stories. At least one of those will still be a prequel to Batman 89, and the jury is still out on the second story. I don't know how close I want to go to the Returns timeline, but probably not very. But just I'll throw that out there for you guys. We got a couple outlines. One is probably still pre-Joker, and the other one is definitely post-Joker, but probably pre-Returns. And if I was a smart man, I would kick off the crowdfunder for those right now, but I'm not going to do that until I have a script. But, I'm going to wait till we have a script, and then we'll do some crowdfunding for that road. So.
Appreciate that. But thank you, Johnny, for coming on.
Yes, thank you.
And with that is superhero stuff you should know.
Thanks, guys.
Awesome. Big thanks to Dan for gathering the visuals for the YouTube experience. Dan will also be helping out for the Patreon deeper dive. So this week we will be sharing some deeper dive details we didn't go into about the Batman 89 Michael Keaton timeline, discussion on actors in the flashback scene of the Wayne murders, more art from Logan, some conflicting information across the scripts and novelizations of what exactly or when exactly Jack Napier killed Thomas and Martha Wayne. So check that out in the $5 Patreon tier for the deeper dive. In the meantime, we have a few fan comments, starting with Douglas. Douglas is back. Douglas says, if someone prefers Batman fighting fantastical villains in a universe inhabited by other heroes, they will have James Gunn's DC. And if someone prefers grounded Batman, where he's the extraordinary amongst the ordinary, they have Matt Reeves. And those who like both, I guess he means those who like both will get to have, well, hold on.
You have 2 different kinds of Batman at the same time. He's saying Guns and Reeves at the same time.
Yes. So yeah, there's a lot of balls in the air. There's a lot of things that we don't know yet about this upcoming James Gunn universe. Maybe by the time between this recording and when this actually gets out, there'll be more announcements. But all I think we can say is that we just gotta wait and see and judge, and it's going to be a long period of waiting and seeing on stuff. So just hold tight. Don't take everything with a grain of salt unless it's an actual announcement, because we're getting to the point where you can't even trust Hollywood Reporter and Variety or Deadline these days.
Yeah.
That's how chaotic DC is. It broke the trades.
So just hold out until you actually go to the theater or see a trailer or even just something, some sort of actual news, because now there's just way too much speculation.
Just enjoy the DC films we're going to have this year.
Mm-hmm.
We're getting a Blue Beetle movie. Come on, that's going to be cool. I know it's not Batman, but we're getting some good stuff. Aquaman 2, etc. So even though the continuity is going to end, let's just be happy with what we have until something actually gets greenlit 100%. Well, I'm sure it'll get greenlit. It's Batman, but until it gets more traction.
Well, it's also what Uslan said, I think, to us and to other podcasts, where you're just like, you can complain as much as you want, just wait until after the movie is actually out.
Yes.
So then you can complain.
Yes.
So, but thank you, Douglas, for this. A couple other comments. One from Eric saying, awesome t-shirt, Ben. I'm surprised I am the only comment that noticed your shirt. You are not, actually. Quick change Batman / Bruce Wayne Kenner action figure shirt. Jack Wicknett Pagnum says, where'd you get the Kenner Bruce Wayne t-shirt? We've had several other comments about this. And every now and then I respond in the when I can on YouTube. But the overall answer to that is Redbubble, but the merchant I got it from is not around anymore, unfortunately. So
probably got a cease and desist. You probably lucked out.
Yeah, I might have, but I'm sure there's going to be someone else on Redbubble or TeePublic who has is going to do this variation of that, especially with the resurgence of the Michael Keaton Batman this year, as well as with the comic. With Joe Quinones putting that Easter egg in of Keaton's Bruce wearing the shirt. So just be on the lookout, guys, for that type of stuff. But I'm glad I got what I got
Yeah,
when I did.
in the nick of time.
Indeed. Last one is from Oliver Emeralds, who DM'd us with an Easter egg he discovered in Arkham Asylum. So he said, I'll send the images. First one is Batman in the Arkham Asylum suit. But he says that after an explosive punch on Joker, he breaks his gauntlet and wrist. He uses his belt buckle and his black underwear, the trunks, to make a splint. See, there is a point to the underwear on the outside, guys.
My God, I've never even heard of that before. Has that even been done in the comics? Tactical underwear.
The reason why I wear this is so that I have a built-in.
There's a fucking reason for all of this shit.
Or it's a tourniquet.
My undies are a tourniquet.
Gordon gets shot, and he's just like, "Hold on a second."
Hold on
He takes his underwear off.
What are you doing?
Trust
Not
me.
what you would think.
Yeah.
So he says you can see he is using a leathery material on his gauntlet. This is not a glitch, as if you look at his crotch part, you can see 2 screw holes, which is seen throughout his suit. I screenshot this when he talks to Commissioner Gordon before he grapples into the Batwing at the end. Thank you, Oliver Emeralds, for pointing this out. This little story thing here, and a fun use of the tactical trunks.
That's awesome, actually. I mean, shit, if you're going to have the trunks, you might as well use them. No, I don't know, but it's great. It is great.
I think recently there was a comic issue that's similar to the unmade Batman animated show that we went over with Bobby 80s, where Batman is like falling from space. And at one point, I think he uses the trunks to help like him breathe or something like that. I haven't checked out the issue, but yeah, people are making use of the tactical trunks. I mean, I think the easiest thing is that it's some sort of in rock climbing, it's some sort of harness type of thing. That would probably also be easy to explain. But if James Gunn's DC universe, if it is indeed a separate Batman from Pattinson and stuff, if we do get trunks and a tactical explanation, they will get the support of this podcast.
Is he ever going to stab somebody in the eye with his ears? That's what I want to know.
Or do the cape thing from Earth 1.
That's the one that's most likely, because especially in movie logic, choking somebody out's not going to kill them, right? And in real life, it might kill somebody if you choke somebody out the wrong way, obviously. But within the movie world, I think that's the most likely, because him stabbing somebody in the eye, that's taking somebody's eye out. So, like, that's probably not going to happen, but it's funny as hell.
It would be, yeah. Pattinson just gets fed up and he just goes through the Dan over his glasses. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like a fucking Looney Tunes bull.
Tactical ways to use the other parts of the Batsuit. So,
yeah, it'd be awesome.
Over to the Patreon shoutouts.
Oh, man, 2023, y'all, so we want to thank some of the newer people off the list. Thanks to everybody for sure, but the ones that get the oral thank you will be today: MetaGeek, Chuck, ATWT, Chris R, Chris M, Darren F, Billy L, Yusuf A, Kevin R, Derek O, Renee V, and Tita, and the rest of our supporters as well. And we've told you about our friends, but now we'd like you to do us a favor.
We want you to tell all your friends about us. Wow, that was a weird intonation. Let me try that again. We want you to tell all your friends about us.
It's going in. The whole thing.